The first time I watched Pretty Baby, its reputation had preceded it. So I was primed to view this film through an American cultural lens. The dominant narrative is that Pretty Baby was an attempt to normalize these themes rather than what I have now come to see the film as in retrospect. An indictment of the American cultural machine and capitalism. To be clear, children cannot consent. The film does not question this. The audience does. It's important that we don't let our discomfort keep us from engaging with the film and what it's attempting to reveal about American society. The very first close-up we see of Violet's face is immediately followed with the sounds of her mother Hattie giving birth. But when played with no context, it gives off a different interpretation that is purposely subverting the viewer's expectations. The film pauses here to ask the audience to confront the possibility that their own projections are already at work. Within the next few moments, the viewer's expectations are reoriented back to the very thing they thought they were about to witness in the opening. It is displayed in a banal and unsensational way. Violet does enter into an adult room and situation. Notice the way the film chooses to display Violet as childish in contrast to her environment. The first few scenes are meant to establish Violet's environment as normal to her. The film constantly displays babies in the background that initially blend in, but then later uses still close-ups to remind the viewer that there are in fact babies in the room. It's important to notice where the camera lingers and where it doesn't. Balak is a proxy for the audience, someone who insists on framing while denying responsibility for what that frame enables. Balak functions as the artist interrogating himself. He asks the audience a fundamental question. Is this art? What constitutes as art? Does framing and context matter? Balak at the beginning of the film appears to view Violet as a child, but we will see that subsequent scenes reveal a different pattern emerging. Balak strikes Violet for messing up his photographs. It is a captive moment that ties his obsession with art to harming Violet. Violet will be the recipient of 4 such physical strikes, as if to call into question if that is the only form of harm the audience recognizes. The film repeatedly asks the viewer, are these two the same? It is left up to the audience's conscience to decide. Violet is preparing to be auctioned off. She is given advice that she mostly refuses. She acts as if she already knows the mechanics, but the viewer is painfully aware that she in fact does not understand. Here, the thesis of the film is undeniable. The artist stands back and watches the men feverishly bid on a human body.
$160.
65.
175.
180.
It's not in my reach. $200. Gentlemen, 210. Yeah,
Well, I'll top that with 225.
The film lingers on the face of Professor while the men continue to place their bids. He functions as a witness. He pauses because he's seen this before. What the film reveals about the audience's awareness is not ignorance, it's familiarity. This is a culture steeped in normalized harm, but when the American machine takes over, it turns pain into spectacle, bodies into capital, and observers into participators. As the 19th century French social philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville warned, in a society trained to judge value through money, moral judgment is easily displaced. Notice the second time the camera lingers too long. Violet is carried upstairs out of view of the society that sold her. The viewer is left downstairs to quietly sit with the other complacent participators in Violet's harm. The actual violence happens off-screen. The harm is withheld from the audience. Then, the film does something shocking in the next scene. It displays Violet in a bathtub, completely non-confrontational and in a normal posture. Almost as if to say, is this the film you came to see? We need to pan out here, because this pattern is not unique to Pretty Baby. Nabokov's Lolita is a book meant to perform a similar reflective process, by once again indicting with the conscience rather than explicit spectacle. What Vladimir Nabokov realized is that the missing factor society faces between harm and complacency is empathy, not outrage. That simple moral condemnation would not confront the society in a meaningful way. So, he sought to engineer empathy through language. If Lolita establishes this quiet process through literature, then Pretty Baby engineers the same visual language through film. The point is not for society to be exposed to more of the same. The point is to construct awareness around discomfort rather than complacency. What happened when Nabokov's indictment through language and empathetic approach reached the American machine of Hollywood? The film adaptation of Lolita was released in 1962. The American production codes at the time forced the film to replace this empathy with innuendo instead, allowing audiences to remain comfortable and largely unreflective. They aged up the main character into a teen idol icon. She is portrayed as a flirtatious teen rather than a child. The film often evokes sympathy with Humbert rather than repulsion. It was repackaged in America as a dark comedy. This shift is not neutral. It's evasive. America did not censor Nabokov's Lolita because it was immoral. It censored it because it was effective.
Why are you crying?
For joy. To amuse myself.
You want to come with me?
No.
When Nabokov and Malle create works that give victims a vocabulary for the harm they experienced, America responds by reassigning the blame away from the societal structure and onto the child. The American adaptation of Lolita was reframed as scandal, temptation, and controversy. America also reframed Pretty Baby as provocative and pushing boundaries. This left these girls holding the bill for a system that refused to reflect on itself. They were left to defend their characters and roles to the society rather than society acknowledging what systems had produced the harm in the first place. America doesn't struggle to recognize harm. It struggles to keep that recognition from settling where it belongs. In this scene, Violet attempts to repeat her trauma with another child. None of the adults intervene until it crosses racial boundaries. Apparently, Violet being auctioned off isn't the line of enforcement. Race is. Violet is then punished off screen, not for the act itself, but for transgressing the racial hierarchy. It's important here to note that the film is showing us clearly that adults have the ability to act and draw a moral line, but only choose to do so for specific instances. This film is showing that America is so focused on racial hierarchy that it ignores all the other harm that is being done to children like Violet. It appears that the response to the society harming children is to instead focus on an external scapegoat of racial differences. Madame now sits on the steps with a woman who is comforting a baby. She instructs her to stop being so affectionate. Here, empathy is policed. To a system that relies on a lack of empathy for those in a different caste, nurture and compassion is intolerable. We see Violet's mother is repeatedly unable to provide empathy and nurture for her own daughter. She constantly abandons Violet throughout the film, but the viewer is also made aware that Hattie's mother was also part of the same system. The film continues to insist that what we are looking at visually and behaviorally is a child. Belloc eventually marries Violet, and the society does not intervene. If there is any doubt what this film is trying to communicate, I'd like to present this scene as evidence.
Violet, what ails you? What's the matter, Violet? Violet, I'm talking to you!
Violet acts out her trauma onto the doll from an earlier scene with her mother Hattie. The reenactment of trauma through play is a well-documented phenomenon in child psychology. This film is asking American audiences to look at the harm caused by the egregious error of assuming that children can understand and process things like adults. In one of the last scenes, the film insists again that Violet was a child the entire time. Violet finally gets her monthly cycle, a well-known symbol of womanhood. A black maid enters, and the viewer is reminded again of the racial caste system firmly held in place while Violet's harm remains normalized and without consequence.
What will become of her now?
What's going on with you? You don't have to worry about her. She's made a lot of money. She can do as she likes.